Hi weavers, we'll just have a little chat while my husband unboxes my new Ashford 8 shaft loom. This is the 16-inch loom, and just as a little disclaimer, the instructions that we give or the assembly that we give in this video, they are all for the 16-inch, and this may differ a little bit for different size looms, just so as you know. If you don't know much about table looms, I'm going to leave you a number of links down below, so check for those. Some of them are other YouTube videos that I've done and some are blog posts. Also, please remember to like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and tap on the bell notification, and that will send you a notification every time I upload a new video. Okay, so once you've actually got your box open, you just want to go in and start having a look through what's in the box. And this is an important part too of checking, just having a quick visual check that everything that's meant to be in there is in there. So there's the instruction booklet, which is a very important part. You'll be using that booklet in conjunction with this video, and it's really important to just look over that, like every single page. Have a look over it, familiarize yourself with all of the pieces and the instructions before you actually start. Now there are a lot of pieces in this loom. It's pretty amazing actually that they can fit everything in this little box, but I guess if you have ever bought anything at IKEA, you'd be used to this kind of flat pack type look. But this is just taking everything out and laying it out to, number one, as I said, make sure that everything is actually there, and number two, just to have everything in order so that it's there when you need it. We're going to start by putting the castle together. The castle is the upright part of the loom. So if you've never owned a castle before, congratulations. We're going to start with some 1.5 inch screws, and it really makes a difference if you rub some candle wax on the screws. All of the holes in the pieces of the loom are pre-drilled, but it's so much easier to fit them in if you wax them. So we've got the castle sides here, and I'm pointing at the holes to show you there are 2 holes on the top and there's 1 hole on each side. You can see also that there are some ridges, and the ridges should be facing each other, so the outer edges of the boards are smooth. We're putting the castle top on top of the sides. You can see the castle top, it's fairly obvious because it's a unique looking piece. And we're just screwing in those 1.5 inch screws into the pre-drilled holes, 2 on each side. What my husband usually likes to do is to put the screws in a certain way, put them all in, and then come back and tighten them at the end, and finish off with a final tighten, and he pretty much does that for every piece that he's putting together. So you can see that the top of the castle there has some holes that have some little nylon guides already set into the piece. So you don't have to do anything with those at this point. Those will come into play afterwards when we're setting up the shafts. So the next screws that we're going to use are the 1.25 inch screws. By the way, if you need to check the measurements of your screws, if you're not sure, just by looking at them, on the instructions that Ashford give, there are pictures of the screws and they're the same size as your real life screws, so you can just measure them up on the paper. You'll see that when you look through your instructions. What we're doing now is putting the bottom cross rails onto the castle sides, and that's a simple matter of just screwing those screws in. Once again, they're waxed, and there are holes for those on either side. So then we'll turn it over and do the same on the other side. This is the second rail now. Okay, so now we've got the castle front, and we're going to put the little nylon guides in, and then we're going to put the castle front on the front of the castle. So my husband's got the castle lying down now. That's the easiest way to attach it, because you can just sit that castle front on top of the whole thing and put those screws in. Now the screws might be different sizes depending on which loom you have. So I think here we're using 1.25 inch screws. You can see there are 2 places where those screws go in. Once again, depending on your loom, there may be 3. Okay, so we've got the castle upright. What my husband's doing here is placing the cotter pins in place. So there are 2 holes on either side of the top of the castle front, and you just pop the cotter pins in there and they stay there for later on. They're actually used for holding the beater in place. Here we've got the loom sides. Now they come with a little protective piece of wood, which we've just taken off there. That protects the little the little pin that's inside there. Those 2 pieces of wood can just be discarded, they're not needed. They're just to protect those clicker pins. There's my husband measuring up the bolts that he needs for the next part. They get dropped into the hole and then hit into place. You can either use a hammer or a mallet. And it takes a little bit of force to get that in there. And then doing the other end as well, make sure you get it in the right spot. So we've put the castle aside now. We're going to focus on putting the actual loom frame together. These bolts, they're called hex head bolts because they have a hexagonal shape on the end. When you tap them in, they need to be level with the surface of the loom. Otherwise, you're going to have problems with the pole catching on it later. So that's why we tap that in and make it level with the surface. Now we're attaching the pole to the loom side. The little clicker pin that was already set into the side of the loom, that goes through the middle, and then you pop your bolt through the larger hole. Now these poles are going to allow us later to be able to advance our warp, move it backwards and forwards, and to use the brake system as well. So make sure that you measure up your bolt with the instructions. We're up to step 6 on your instructions. So yes, just make sure that you measure the bolt, you've got the correct size. And you also leave a 0.5 millimeter. Don't screw it in all the way because this pole has to have some movement. So you can see that's got a nice bit of movement there. Now we go to the back end of the same piece of the loom side. We only do this on one side of the loom. So it's the very same piece and we're doing pretty much the same thing, putting the pole on. The handle of this pole will be facing the handle of the other pole. So they're actually facing in opposite directions with the handles facing towards each other. Putting that screw in just as before and also leaving the 5 millimeters. Okay, so here's how we're looking. This is one side of the loom so far. So we have the opposite side there and now we're putting on the rollers. This is pretty straightforward. This part, the 2 rollers are just the same. So he is putting on the back roller at the moment and now here is the front roller and they just fit into the holes that are in the sides of the loom. You can see that the holes in the roller as well. That's going to allow us to attach some bars later on. Okay, so they should be able to move. And now he's putting on the back beam with some 2-inch screws. These screws have a flat head. When you're attaching the beams, the only thing that you really need to pay attention to is that the flat side is facing inward on the loom and the rounded side is facing out. So you'll notice with your beam pieces that one side of it is rounded and that is to be facing out. So just this is just placing the screws in the beam. That's the 2-inch screws. And now this is the front beam. You can really see that rounded side there facing out. And once again, using 2-inch screws. I believe there are 2 screws on each side. At this point we turn the loom over, flip it over so that it's steady, and we're going to put on the loom feet. These are the little non-slip rubber feet that are going to stop your loom from moving around once you are actually using it on a table. These are 1/2-inch screws, so they're just little ones, and you'll be able to find the rubber feet in your supplies. So this is very straightforward. You just pop that screw into the middle of the foot, pop it in the right hole on the bottom of the loom and screw it in. And you do that for all 4 bottoms of the frame so that you end up with 4 feet. Once that's done, you can flip it back over. Now we're putting on the support rails. These are going to be helpful when we set up the beater. So they just sit on the top of the frame. You can see there's a little indentation where they go, and you pop the washer and then the end cap on to hold them in place. And you can use one of the little tools that came with the loom to tighten that up nicely. Just check when you put the support arms on that they are the right way around. And with these you want to leave a little 1/2 mil gap. Like, don't over tighten them because then they'll be too stiff to be able to lift. Now we're going to put the cogs onto the ends of the rollers. Okay, so the teeth for the front cog are facing forward. I'm going to pop a washer and 1-inch screws into that. Once again, as I said before, this is going to be part of your advancing your warp and using the brake system. We're going to put the handles on. When you put the handle on, if you just push it on initially, you'll hear a little bit of clicking so that it clicks in place, but then it needs this extra force of actually being hit to really engage on there. And now we're going to do the back cog as well. So the back cogs are facing in the opposite direction to the front cogs. This is important because your brake system and your roller system is not going to work properly if you don't have the cogs facing the right way. Once again, we use the washer and the 1-inch screw. And place the other handle on as well.